All right, listener name, ready to dive in. Today we're tackling AI in healthcare. Got our scuba gear this book, The Evolution of Healthcare in the Age of AI, and thankfully, an expert to help us navigate.
Absolutely. We're going to break down the basics, explore the mind-blowing potential, but also, talk about the big ethical questions that come with it.
Love it. And this book surprised me. It starts with ancient Greece, which seems a little random. Did Socrates invent the first stethoscope or something?
It's funny you mention that because the book makes this really interesting connection. It talks about how those early Greek philosophers, they were already imagining machines that could mimic human actions, talking about self-opening doors, statues that move on their own, almost like they were predicting this whole AI thing.
True. The idea of a thinking machine has always captured our imaginations. But back then, it was all myths and stories, right?
Yeah.
When did things start to get real?
Well, the book points to the 20th century as the turning point. That's when we went from philosophical pondering to actually trying to build these thinking machines. And of course, you can't talk about AI without mentioning Alan Turing and his famous test.
Right, the Turing test.
Yeah.
That's the one where if a computer can convince you it's human, then boom, it's basically sentient.
Exactly. And while it's not a foolproof measure of true artificial intelligence, the Turing test really got the ball rolling. It sparked a ton of research and development in the field. The book also highlights the Dartmouth Conference in 1956, which is considered the birthplace of AI as an actual field of study. They even coined the term artificial intelligence right there.
So, mid-20th century, we've got the name, the goal, the Turing test setting the bar. You'd think AI was about to take off like, well, a rocket. Were we all getting our healthcare from robot doctors by the 60s?
Not quite. The book makes it clear that AI hasn't always been a smooth upward trajectory. It's had these periods called AI winters, where progress stalled, funding dried up, and the initial hype kind of fizzled out.
Okay, so what happened? Did AI hit a wall? Was it just too early for the tech to deliver?
It was a perfect storm of factors, really. One major hurdle was simply the massive complexity of what they were trying to achieve. Early AI systems were limited by computing power. They just couldn't handle the mountains of data needed for real learning.
So it's like trying to teach your dog a new trick with only half a treat. You need enough data to make those connections.
Exactly. On top of that, some of those early promises, especially about creating general-purpose AI that could do it all, were, well, a tad optimistic. Turns out, replicating human intelligence is way harder than we thought.
Makes sense. But fast forward to today, and AI is everywhere. It's recommending our music, helping us navigate traffic, even writing our emails. What changed? Why is this AI boom different?
The book really zeroes in on a specific breakthrough called deep learning. Imagine a computer program that's structured kind of like the human brain, with layers upon layers of these artificial neurons. Each layer processes information, picks up patterns, and passes it on. It's a simplified picture, of course, but that's deep learning in a nutshell.
So instead of programming a computer with every possible rule and response, we're building systems that can learn and adapt on their own, just like our brains.
You got it. And this is where all that data comes into play. Deep learning algorithms thrive on data. The more you feed them, the better they get at recognizing patterns and making predictions. And guess what? The healthcare industry is practically drowning in data.
That's true. Electronic health records, medical images, genomic data, clinical trials. We're practically generating mountains of this stuff every day.
Precisely. And that's why AI is so perfectly positioned to revolutionize healthcare. But before we get into the specifics,
So before we get to the mind-blowing applications of AI in healthcare, we need to decode some of the jargon. It's like learning a secret language. Thankfully, our expert is fluent in AI. What's our first term?
Let's start with the big one, the engine behind a lot of this progress.
Yeah.
Machine learning.
Okay, machine learning. Sounds kind of intimidating, like something out of Terminator 2. What's the plain English version?
Think of it like this. Imagine you're teaching a kid how to ride a bike. You can explain it all you want, but they really learn by doing right. Trying, falling, figuring it out. Machine learning is similar. We feed an algorithm tons of data, and it learns to spot patterns, make predictions, all without being specifically programmed for every single situation.
So it's like the algorithm is building its own understanding based on what we feed it.
Exactly. And there are different ways to do this. There's something called supervised learning, where we give the algorithm labeled data, like showing it pictures of apples and oranges and saying, this is an apple, this is an orange. And then there's unsupervised learning, where we basically let the algorithm loose on unlabeled data and let it figure out the patterns and connections itself.
Interesting. So supervised is like having a teacher, and unsupervised is more like independent study.
Got it. Now, what about neural networks? I feel like I hear that term everywhere. Sounds very, well, brainy.
Neural networks are where things get super interesting, especially in healthcare. Imagine a simplified version of the human brain with all these interconnected nodes that process information, kind of like neurons firing and passing signals. And each connection between these nodes has a certain weight, showing how important it is.
So it's like a brain, but made of algorithms and data instead of actual neurons.
Exactly. And these networks are crazy powerful for tasks like analyzing medical images. The book talks about how a neural network can be trained on thousands of EKGs, and it learns to pick up on those tiny variations that might mean something's wrong with the heart, often even better than a cardiologist. Wow, that's incredible. So we've got algorithms that learn like our brains. What about talking to them? I'm thinking about those AI assistants, the chatbots. That's where natural language processing, or NLP, comes in, right?
Bingo! NLP is all about bridging that gap between human language and, well, how computers understand things. It's what lets you ask Alexa about the weather, or translate languages on your phone, or even, as you said, have a conversation with a chatbot.
And hopefully those conversations will only get smoother and more natural as time goes on, right? I've had some interesting experiences with chatbots, let's just say.
Totally. NLP is constantly evolving. Think about how helpful this could be in healthcare, though. AI chatbots could answer basic medical questions, triage patients, maybe even offer some personalized advice based on your medical history.
Now that sounds incredibly useful, especially for people who might not have easy access to healthcare. Okay, last jargon term for today, and this one seems particularly relevant: predictive analytics. Is that what it sounds like?
It is, and you've definitely experienced a simpler version of it. Ever get those eerily accurate product recommendations online, like customers who bought this also bought? That's predictive analytics in action, using your past purchases to guess what you might want next.
Okay, so how does that relate to my health? Explain it to me like I'm 5.
Imagine taking that same predictive power and applying it to your health data. We're talking medical history, lifestyle, genetics. AI can analyze all that to identify potential risks, maybe even predict the chances of developing certain conditions.
So instead of just reacting to symptoms, we could get ahead of the curve and potentially prevent problems before they even start.
You got it. Think of the possibilities identifying patients at high risk of ending up back in the hospital, giving doctors a chance to intervene early, or even forecasting outbreaks, giving public health officials a head start.
This is all starting to sound pretty futuristic, but in a good way. But with all this potential, I imagine there are also some big questions, right? Especially when it comes to something as important as healthcare.
100%. AI in healthcare isn't just about the tech. It's about the implications, the ethical considerations, the impact on society as a whole.
So let's get into it. What are some of the coolest ways AI is being used in healthcare right now?
One area where AI is really shining is in medical imaging. Like, the book talks about how AI is being used to detect diabetic retinopathy, which is, a leading cause of blindness.
Okay, retinopathy, right. It's an eye thing.
Yeah.
But remind me what it is exactly?
So it's basically when high blood sugar, often from diabetes, damages the blood vessels at the back of the eye, the retina. And if it's not caught early, it can lead to vision loss.
And that's where AI comes in.
Exactly. AI algorithms can look at these retinal images and spot those tiny signs of damage, often even more accurately than, like, a human expert.
Wow, so it's like a super-powered eye exam.
Pretty much, and the book doesn't stop there. It also highlights AI's potential in diagnosing Alzheimer's disease, and get this, years before any symptoms even show up.
Seriously, diagnosing Alzheimer's that early would be huge.
It would be game-changing, right?
Right.
Early diagnosis means more time to plan, to look into potential treatments, and even make lifestyle changes that could slow down the disease's progression.
It's like, instead of getting blindsided, you have a fighting chance. Are there any examples of AI being used in, like, more immediate life or death situations?
Absolutely. One of the most promising applications is in cancer detection, specifically melanoma, which is a type of skin cancer.
Oh, wow, skin cancer.
Yeah, AI algorithms are being trained on these massive data sets of skin images and are learning to recognize those subtle patterns and variations that might indicate melanoma.
So you're telling me AI could potentially spot skin cancer better than a dermatologist?
That's the hope. Early detection is key with melanoma, and this technology could make a world of difference. And, get this, the book even gets into AI-assisted surgery.
Wait, hold up. Robots with scalpels. That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right? But it's already happening. And AI is making these robotic systems even more precise, even steadier. Surgeons are using them to assist with really complex procedures.
It's like having a super steady, hyper-precise surgical assistant.
Exactly. It's amazing how far we've come, and this is really just the beginning. The future of healthcare is starting to look a lot like science fiction, but it's becoming our reality.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. But as cool as all this tech is, we have to remember that AI in healthcare isn't just about the tech itself. It's about people. It's about making sure these tools are used ethically, responsibly, and in a way that benefits everyone.
Couldn't agree more. Like any powerful technology, there are big questions we need to be asking, important conversations to be had. But for today, I think it's pretty incredible to see how far we've come and the potential that AI has to completely transform healthcare for the better.
Absolutely. So, listener name, feeling a little smarter about AI in healthcare?
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from like ancient Greek philosophers to robot surgeons. Who knew?
It's been a wild ride, that's for sure. And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The world of AI in healthcare is vast and constantly evolving. Hopefully this deep dive has given you a good starting point, a foundation to build on as you explore this exciting field. Keep asking questions and stay curious.